We're live.
Are we live? Good morning. Get the other camera going. Have a seat, my dear. Good morning. Good morning. Got us both today. I hope everybody is having a good day. And we want to say that today's video is brought to you by our secret sale. So if you have not checked out our secret sale and you are not a Thinking, Feeling, Willing member yet, I would jump over and check it out because it is pretty good. Pretty deep discount. So that is, you can get that at melissanielsen.com/secret. So Eric is making sure because he's usually sitting next to me running the YouTube side, and today he's sitting next to me and he's trying to run the YouTube side from his phone.
It's a little like those one-man bands where they got all the instruments connected to them and they're walking down the street with the drum and the horn and the humrack and the...
Yep, like that. Like that. So he's getting himself all settled so he can read any comments that come up on the YouTube. So I wanted to address something while he's doing that. I wanted to address something really quick. We sent out an email yesterday, and I inadvertently offended somebody, and I wanted to bring it up because I wanted to make sure I didn't offend other somebodies. Our in the United States, we're celebrating Memorial Day this weekend, and in fact, today is Memorial Day. And in the email that I sent out yesterday, I actually thanked servicemen and women for their service. And I did that. I know the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day, very much so, because I'm actually an Army brat. So spent my childhood around the military, and while we live in Ocean Beach, we live on the other side of Point Loma, which is the like the naval capital of Southern California. In fact, underneath the peninsula that we live, there's all kinds of substations, and it's a lot of war prevention and safety right underneath us. And so we are around that like all the time, and we have good friends at church that are serving on a regular basis, and probably I would say 75% of our congregation is in the Navy or the Marines or or the Army or the Coast Guard or something, just because of where we live. Wouldn't you say 75%? Maybe 70%, but a lot. So we are very well versed in, what our servicemen and women are doing. And so my thinking in thanking them when I sent out the email was not to downplay the fact that this is a holiday that we celebrate for the fallen. It was actually to thank them because they're doing the work of the fallen. The fallen have fallen, and we had those that are still living that are doing the work. And that was my intent. So if I offended anybody else, again, I am super sorry. I wanted you to know what my intent was. My intent was definitely to help the those that are still doing that work to rise and to feel like they are supported, and as well as thanking those who have passed and honoring those. So I wanted to get that out of the way at the beginning because that's weighing on me, and I don't want it to. I don't want anybody else to feel like, oh, Melissa doesn't understand, because I do understand, but I wanted you to understand our perspective of it and why we did what we did. So again, for those celebrating today, celebrating those who have fallen, today is a day to really be thinking about those that have. But we should be thinking about them every day. I suppose this is just a day that our country honors them. So today we're going to talk about prevention is easier than cleanup, or better than cleanup. Can you think of any instances off the top of your head? Because otherwise I was going to start with some things.
Well, like in our case with Soraya, where she has some sensory processing
Stuff.
challenges.
Challenges, that's a good word.
The prevention is making sure she doesn't get overstimulated and
Bless you.
you know,
Right.
and that she gets enough rest. And if you don't do those things, then you pay for it worse later on.
Absolutely. I think that the things that we're going to talk about today, like with regards to prevention, are things that are easy to do. To me, I think it's easy to get a child to bed on time because I don't want to have to do the cleanup. The cleanup is not the easy part. The prevention is the easy part. And I think we're kind of sold this idea with a lot of mainstream parenting resources that it has to be hard. And the hardest part, I think, is us. It's hard for us to turn off the TV. It's hard for us to get up off our butts. But really it's not. Those are like when I distill it down and I was really thinking about this concept of prevention is easier than cleanup. I was thinking they're really very easy things that we have to do. Very easy things. And if we could really get on board with the idea that they're easy, then it makes the cleanup like there is no cleanup, or the cleanup is very, very minimal. I think when I'm thinking about easy things, I'm talking about across the board. So I'm talking about in your partnering, your marriage, your parenting. So it's easy to give your husband a kiss when he comes home from work, or wife. Easy. Or let them know that you love them, or make their lunch, or fill up their water bottle, or it's easy to do those things. It's easy. It just takes you 10 seconds, right? It's not easy. It's hard to do the cleanup from what happens when this relationship degrades, or there's contention. So that's the hard part. That's the cleanup part. If we could get on board with the idea that the prevention part is the easy, then we could get more proactive, I think, and get out of our heads and get out of our way. With parenting, again, you mentioned bedtime and feeding on an easy regular basis is easy. It's easy for me to get food into Soraya. And she's super picky. Like the child that
Most things she thinks is disgusting.
like the child that doesn't think that most fruits and vegetables. And I will say, I remember Harry being in exactly the same place that she is now
Yeah.
for a huge part of his childhood. Huge part of his childhood. I remember him begging for chicken nuggets. And I was like, I don't know what you're thinking, because I saw it happening every day. And it wasn't even, it was the nasty ones from McDonald's because it was a texture thing.
Yeah.
So, it was easy for me to feed him, but I had to come up with creative ways to feed him because he didn't want to feed him. It would have been easy for me to go down the street and get that every day.
Yeah.
When we lived in Utah, when he was that age, we lived in that house that I showed you in Sandy, and there was a McDonald's right down the street. So it would have been like it was easy. It would have been easy for me to do that. But it was equally easy for me to come up with creative ways to feed him, so I didn't have to feed him that, but also so that he would eat. And so Soraya is the same way. There are things that she will just not do. So we found a couple of things that we keep on hand all the time. Like I think about Larabars. I don't know what our lives would be like without Larabars. Oh my gosh. And it's not any Larabar. It has to be the peanut butter cookie Larabar.
Yeah,
it's very
else.
specific.
Yeah.
But it keeps her from being hangry, and it'll get us to a place where
hangry is a good word.
Yes, it'll get us to a place where I can get into her something that that she will eat, because she doesn't eat fruits or vegetables unless I hide them. The poor man at the farmer's market that we buy our fruit from every week, he go, would you like to try an apple this week? And she's like, no. He just laughs, hands her an apple juice, and we just keep walking. She'll drink the apple juice and she'll eat applesauce, but the apple. So I think that we have to really step back and look at all facets of our lives and go, what are we doing that making it so hard? Mm-hmm. Because I think when we don't do those very little things, it really sets us up for having to clean up. So look at your parenting. I would say if you're yelling a lot, what is it that you're not acting on? So usually what happens when I yell, I used to yell a lot in my younger parenting. I don't yell nearly as much now. Wouldn't you say? In 13 years, I've chilled a lot. Yeah. And before that, even, I had chilled a lot by the time I met you.
Well, we've had conversations. Is so-and-so particularly on one right now, or is it just my state of mind? And
right.
It's like, well, it's your state of mind.
Often it's me. Yeah. I go.
Or me.
Right. Absolutely. So it's about sort of sorting out our own stuff so that we can be in a better place. But with regards to yelling, 9 times out of 10, yelling comes from the fact that you didn't act when you should have. So you have to step back and you have to ask yourself, at what point should I have acted that I didn't? And then start acting like to that place. Like go, all right, was it because I sat on the couch and asked them to clean up rather than getting up and actually going through the actions of cleaning up? Because what ends up happening is clean that up. Hey, I told you to clean that up. Clean that up now, and you're still sitting on the couch. You have to get up and you have to move your body and you have to show them. I mean, 9 times out of 10, young children need you to go through the action with them, because otherwise you are just going to become this like raving person that just yells. And with regards to partnering, I think, like I said, I think prevention with very simple things. Most of the time, couples know and understand when you're in the thick of parenting, but it doesn't mean, I always try to make sure that he knows every day how much I love him. And you do the same. And I think that we can get in the thick of it so much with our parenting that it's really easy to not be present with each other when we're trying to be present with them. I mean, it's awesome when we're all present together, but that doesn't happen, on a regular basis. Do you have any other thoughts about like prevention? Any places that I'm missing?
Well, there's like lots of simple things. Like with Soraya, we often have the conversation. I have to keep track of when the last time, if I'm out with her or something and we're driving to different places, I have to keep track when the last time she went to the bathroom was, because she will ignore it because she gets busy, and then all of a sudden it becomes an emergency. So I try to think ahead on that one, because whenever I say you need to go and she says no you don't, I said I think you do,
and, try.
And it does happen, and she goes.
Yeah. I always tell her the potty fairies told me you needed to go potty. I was like, what? Who are these fairies? and where are they? And how come I don't see them? So they just talk in my ear. When a potty fairies come with you next time. She'll go. She'll be like, the potty fairies told her I need to go. Let's go find the bathroom right now. But I think you're right. I think that there's so many things that are so simple that we could do for prevention that, that make our lives go so much smoother. I mean, just the act of taking snacks in the car, I think is huge. I think the act of planning out where you're going, and where the bathrooms are is huge. I'm huge on exit strategy. Whenever I get anywhere, this is my idea of prevention. Whenever I get anywhere, I don't care where it is, I'm always like, all right, how am I getting out of here if I have to? Like, how am I getting out of here if there's a tantrum? And that's like life, having parented Harry, because there were tantrums abounding until he was probably 9 years old. And so, I've conditioned myself to be looking for, where is the exit? How am I getting out of here? How am I going to? And often, if it's the grocery store, I had to leave everything, and we just left.
Yeah.
I can remember one time Sam, he was little. He was probably like 4, and I was shopping with the big kids, which is something I rarely shopped with everybody. And it must have been, you must have been working late and we didn't have food or something, because I remember having all of them with me. And because they know I will just drop everything and leave, Samuel was like, please, guys, please behave. I really want her to buy bananas today. It was like, he was just begging his siblings to behave. And he was the youngest. He was the one that you would have thought would have been the hardest. No, the hardest ones were those big kids sometimes. They were so rowdy in the store. I just remember walking through Fred Meyer in Idaho Falls, and he's like begging them to please behave. She has the bananas in the cart. Can you please? We're in the home stretch. Can we just get to the register? She will leave it. I know this lady. She will leave the cart and make us leave without the bananas. Could you please just behave? So, then they get to helping each other, and that it's super helpful. But I think that we really have to just look at the things in our lives that we think are so hard, and that we think that we're really struggling with, and often is in our parenting, and really look at, okay, what am I doing to make this harder? I think bedtime is huge. What are you doing to make bedtime harder than it needs to be? Like way harder than it needs to be. And often it's because you missed the sleep window. If you're having a hard time getting a child to sleep, and it's becoming 8, 9, 10 o'clock, and they're still not sleeping, you're probably missing the sleep window, or not getting enough movement in. So you have to think about those things. And we have a
What
lot of
if you have
resources to help with that.
overly complicated before sleep
Oh,
rituals?
that too. And I think that
You
abounds
have
in
to
a
try to
Waldorf.
figure out a way to simplify it
you know, I, yeah, absolutely.
because if you make it overly complicated, they'll make sure that like everything is done to the T.
Well, they will, and I think that it is definitely a Waldorf thing to have a very good soothing sleep rhythm, and I'm not
Yeah.
knocking that. I agree with what you're saying, because I think that you know. And this is what we do. We usually light a candle, and I read from a book that we're reading. We're in a place where Sam is almost 12 and Sarai is 7. So I had to be careful about finding a book that matches them both, which I have to give another plug in case you haven't heard me talk about this before. The Wonderful Flight to the Mushroom Planet and all the books that go with it. Oh my gosh. So good. They have been so engaged for the last few months. And we read the last chapter of the book we had last night, and it was really sad. Eric's got to find that last book. It's really good. Anyway, so we read. I light the candle. We read, but I read when they're in bed. So they get in bed. We've already said prayers. We've already given hugs. Last drink of water, or they go to bed with their water bottle. We usually send them to bed with their water bottle. Everybody's been to the potty, teeth are brushed and everything. So all of that stuff happens, and then I don't count that as bedtime. Bedtime is when you're in the bed. And so if you're having struggles around getting all that stuff to happen, you got to back all of it up. And usually by about 30 minutes, I mean, I would say that it takes a good 30 minutes or at least 20 for our kids to take their sleep supplements, to go to the bathroom, brush their teeth, get their PJs on. So I know that if I want them in bed by 7:30, or if I want lights out by then, we have to start at 10 to 7 or at 7. And people I have a lot of people go, what? I go, yes, yes. We have a very strict, like, the house is quiet generally after about 8. And even though I let Sam get up a couple of nights a week, and he and I we're doing a mom son thing, watching all of Star Wars from the beginning to the end. We are in the middle of Clone Wars. Oh my gosh, this is gonna take us forever. At the end of the year, we might be done, like, maybe. And then, yeah, anyway, because we're watching everything in order. But but that only happens a couple of nights a week, because I really like guard my sleep too, and I guard his sleep. So he'll get up if they can get in bed on time. So that's his, like, incentive. He's like, yes, come on, let's get going, because he knows if it's too late, then I won't let him get back up. And so sometimes that happens, but we have designated nights that he and I watch something together. And so he's definitely helps the pushing along of the bedtime, and he knows that we need to. But as far as, like, once they're in the bed, light candle, read, give kisses, leave. And we do sparkle stories. Now, when Sarai was younger, I sat there with her when she was 3 to 4. I haven't done that in this house because they've all been in the same, like, bed or same room. But when we were in the other house, and they had sort of different bedtimes, or not around the same, not as close, I would lay there with her until she went to sleep. But she was younger. And we definitely weaned off of that as she got older. So try not to make your bedtime routine overly complicated. I know some families are like, well, how could you do a verse, and then we're gonna, light the candle and sing a song. And Ellie was reminding me of her complicated bedtime routine before Samuel was born, and I was like, oh man, I can't believe I did that to myself, because we didn't light the candle, but we used to. She reminded me, I used to tell a story, and then 3 jokes. It was like 3 jokes a night, um, and it seems like she would tell 1 or 2, and they were always almost the same jokes. And then we would sing a song, and then so it's like it goes on and on and on. And then it seems like I said, well, yeah, and I had to train your dad so that when Sam was born, he knew how to do it. And she's like, yep, and he screwed it up. He was not good at it. But so when you got something that's so complicated, you have to be able to both be able to do it. So don't make it too hard. So again, going back to prevention, like, prevent the mishaps by making it so it's not too hard. Right now, our sleep routine is something that a babysitter could do, a grandparent could do, anybody could do. I could do it over the phone if I had to. And that's something that we've set up on purpose. So think about what you've got going, and some of the things. Are you complicating it too much? Because that's really what we're talking about here. When I'm talking about prevention is better than cleanup, often if we complicate it too much, we're like, oh, screw it, I'll just clean it up at the end. You don't want to clean it up at the end. You definitely want to work on the prevention part of it. Do you have any comments on YouTube or anything?
No, we don't.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're in good
I
shape.
asked if everybody could hear, and nobody said one way or the other.
So hopefully,
And
but we have watchers on YouTube.
we have people watching.
Oh, very good. Okay.
So I think we're okay.
So I was trying to think of other instances where prevention is better than cleanup. I mean, I really think it's everywhere. I think, I think boundaries is a good one. When you have boundaries, then you don't have to clean up the emotional garbage that happens afterwards. We had a situation with a local family in our co-op recently, and I, I'm standing back going, that escalated quickly. And so finding the boundary.
Yeah.
If I had been more like on it, I would have found the boundary and got, sorry, that's not happening. We had to put the boundary up later, and it ended up having some casualty to it, and that's not any fun. And so I think that when we can have those boundaries, and it doesn't matter who they're with, it could be with a partner, it could be with a parent, it could be with your children. The boundaries is the easy part. The cleanup is the hard part.
Yeah, I mean, and boundaries are tricky because you want to hope that nobody goes and puts their toe over that line.
Right.
But you can hope, and
we've been around the block enough
so
times.
many times we go, surely they're not going to take it to this place, and then they do, and then you think, surely they're not going to take it to that place, and then they do, and so it's like not setting people up to fail.
Right, and ourselves as well as
Yes.
other people. And I think that boundary setting can be very hard for people, but I want you to get in the habit of thinking it's actually the easiest part. The cleanup is the hard part. Mm-hmm. The prevention, the boundary setting, the putting kids to bed on time, the feeding people when they should be, the kissing your partner, hugging your partner, being in a good place. That's the easy part. That's the amazing life part. That's the part that takes this much effort to do, and the reward is gigantic versus the cleanup that wears everybody out. So anyway, that was our topic today. I hope that was helpful. I think that it applies in so many areas. It's across the board, so much easier to prevent something. I know we can't always prevent something, but if we're aware and we know what's going on, I can't always prevent Soraya from melting down. But that would be lovely. But I was thinking yesterday, she's 7 and she's gotten a lot better in the last year.
Yeah.
As far as us being able, like, we know exactly where the tipping point is, and because we've honed that relationship, so we know what the tipping point is. We know where when we have to say, nope, sorry, we're done. And so that's super helpful. But there are always like a wild card. There would be something that is crazy. Okay, let's see. Melanie says, how about prevention during holiday, like today, stimulation, bad food, late nights? So things like, okay, so today, where it is a holiday in the United States, a lot of people are going to be going to barbecues today and hanging out with family. When we are faced with situations where I know they're going to eat bad food, because, let's face it, most people don't think that the food that they're feeding our people are bad. And so I think that really what happens is we have to be sure that we're on it. So I always take something that I know they'll eat and that I know is good for them, so that it counters. Eric is checking sound. Are we getting sound on the other mic? So they know that it counters what it is that they're eating. So if I can keep that in mind, then that's super helpful. And it could be something simple. It could be like you following them when they're dishing up their plate. Because I've been at, you're at a family's house and the food's all out on the table, and kids are like, let's have at it. So I always go, and Sam knows, I go, make responsible choices. He's pretty good about, like, I'll survey what's there, and I'll say, make responsible choices. I want to make sure that you have at least 4 carrots on your plate or whatever. Because, and if there's nobody that's bringing good food to this family function, Melanie, you be the one that brings it. You be the one that brings the carrots if that's a problem, because then you can at least make sure that they have something that is good for them to eat. So with an older child, I would just survey and let them know what you expect on their plate. And that doesn't mean they can't have the fun stuff, but I expect the good stuff on the plate too. With a younger child, I would walk with them. I walk with them to build their plate, and I make sure that they're eating where I can see them, because I want to make sure that they have good food in their body before they dive into whatever Aunt Matilda brought. you know, that's full of dye and full of that.
Yeah.
And so, that's how I would combat that, is really to pay. That's your prevention piece. It's so much easier to walk away from what Uncle Jerry is saying and walk with your child through the food line,
Yeah.
and make sure that they eat. And then, kids are super resilient. I don't have a problem with chips usually, and most candy, but I look at what's the dye content. Those are my hot buttons. So you have to look at like what your child's hot buttons are, and try to stay away from them. And then the stimulation, hopefully you're at a place where there's a lot of space. And if there's not, don't be afraid to grab your sister-in-law or somebody else and go, let's take these kids for a walk and go around the block a few times. Or if you're at a park, get them running. I think that it's really easy to get admired in adult conversation, and we just let the kids go. And really, that's not what we should be doing. We really have to pay attention. I was at a birthday party over the weekend, and it from a family that we love, and I would try to be line of sight for Soraya the entire time, because I know she tends to get overstimulated. and
Mhm.
and in fact, we haven't been to that birthday party in 2 years, because the last time I took her, that's what I was thinking about when I was there. The last time I took her, she had a tantrum the entire next day. Remember the last time we went to a
Yeah.
birthday party there? And so, and my friend really knows how to throw a good party. And so it was a matter of me going, okay, I've been down this road. What do I need to do differently with this child to make sure that it's not overload city? So, anyway, it was a fun party. There were ponies and brushing ponies' hair, and there was a bounce house, and there was good food. But after she had ridden the pony, which she was super excited about, she did that, and then it was time to eat. And I sat with her, and I helped her make her plate. And, she took about 3 bites, and she was like, I'm full. I'm like, nope, you're not. We're going to sit here, we're going to finish eating. And she had pulled pork. And so, we're meat eaters. And I made her sit and finish her sandwich, because it gave her a good amount of protein to then go and run.
Mhm.
And then ended up I had to leave, and I had to leave her there. And because she ate really well, I felt really good about leaving her there. I didn't feel like she was going to have a meltdown for some other poor suspecting
Yeah.
parent. So I feel like I think I think that if you can just really think about, survey the land when you get to this family place, Melanie, and anybody else who's got this today, and at any family function, really survey what's going on, and be involved in the food creation at all if possible, so that you can bring things that are healthy enough for your children to eat. But when it comes to like, nobody's going to die from a bag of Lay's potato chips. It'll be okay. So, I make sure they drink plenty of water, so that it goes through them as quickly as possible if they're going to be doing a lot of that. Water has always been our friend, especially I remember when Harry used to get into stuff when he was younger. Be like, dude, here's some water.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that that's really important. So, that's a really good question. Really good question, Melanie. Does anybody else have any questions? I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I hope you get the idea. Really think about what's going on. And when you see tantrums, or you're thinking about what's been going on in your life, if you're having some struggles, I want you to step back and go, oh, am I making this too hard? And where was the prevention point? And if I can gather the prevention point, and sometimes the prevention point is so easy, um, it, it's actually always easy, but sometimes it's like a no-brainer, but we just don't want to do it. So we're working with a family that they just had a new baby, and they're really struggling with TV, because they're really struggling with TV, and they have a child with special needs that's got some sensory stuff going on. And honestly, if I could just impart, just throw it away, just get rid of it, or send it to work with dad, or turn it off, lose your remote controls, hide the laptop. Because honestly, I really think that media is so bad for kids that have sensory issues, that it's bad for a lot of kids. But like, I can't imagine what Soraya would be like if she had TV all day.
Oh yeah.
In fact, yesterday they couldn't agree on something, so they didn't watch anything until like 5 o'clock at night, and then it was something really silly, and I was like, "Oh, it's dinner time now. It's over."
Yeah.
So it's about like really keeping it way down, and then in a lot of cases, it's about like axing it completely, so it's not something they're asking about incessantly. So if you've got a situation where you're trying to cut out media and you're thinking, but the easy thing is to turn the TV on. Actually, it's not. The easy thing is to not ever turn it on because it's harder to clean up from the TV. So I would say that you have to go through a detox period, and it probably will take a good month, maybe not a month totally, but sometimes, I think that then they'll stop asking for it, at least not nearly as much. Cover it up, hide it, make sure that it's not like in view, make sure that you have plenty of things to do instead. Soraya doesn't even ask generally. On
Yeah.
Sundays, she asks because we're all hanging out. We're just sitting and sometimes on Saturday when we go on a date, she knows she gets to watch a movie with her big sister. But in general, because it's not on a regular basis, be it for video games or for TV, they don't ask. There are certain days, there are certain days when we come home from co-op on Tuesdays, they are so depleted. They just ask if they can, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes they're like, no, sorry, we're just gonna chill with that. And so she'll listen to Sparkle stories, something like that. That's the prevention piece. That's the piece where you go, okay, so much easier than turning the TV on and having to deal with the consequences later.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, I think we really are ready to close this time. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Again, it is brought to you by our secret sale. So if you are not a Thinking Feeling Willing member, but you're thinking about becoming one or you'd like to become one, but you've not been able to afford it, hop on over, check it out at melissanielsen.com/secret. And Kelly has put the link in the comments on Facebook.